This is all about Bitcoin, a show dedicated to all things questions and markets related to Bitcoin, little b for the currency, and Bitcoin, big B for the network. A collective journey to understand, apply, and use this innovation, all Bitcoin, all the time. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Let's have a live look at Bitcoin right now. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is currently below $38,000 now at 37,573. Bitcoin is tracking losses about 1.8% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data.
The chart of the day is brought to you by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app.
Bitcoin reversing yesterday's gains as the derivatives market continues to reflect pessimism, according to CoinDesk's Omkar Gabole. This chart showing the annualized rolling 3-month futures premium continues to trend south in major exchanges, including the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, CME, and Binance, indicating pessimism among both institutional and retail traders. Skew data showing the CME futures trading at a premium of about 2%, while offshore futures trading at a premium of over 3%. Arcane research data is saying, quote, the futures basis still experience a steady decline as the bears show no signs of stopping. Arcane research said in a weekly note published Tuesday, basis refers to the spread between prices in futures and spot markets. All right, joining us now to discuss BTC price and more is CoinDesk markets reporter Damanick Dantes in New York. Hello there, Dantes. Thanks for joining us. So, in the news, Ukraine is preparing to declare a 30-day state of emergency amid potential invasion by Russian troops. Countries are initiating sanctions against Russia, and that's causing global market jitters. When looking at Bitcoin, Bitcoin's fear and greed index is entering extreme fear territory. We have a chart here. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, that greed uplift that we saw over the past 2 weeks or so was definitely short-lived. We head up against the 46K or 40K resistance level. So that invited some selling pressure, and that was consistent with equities and several of the other speculative assets. So the sentiment right now is definitely in fair mode. And I've kept on saying, these indicators can remain in oversold levels or in fair modes for quite some time. The last trough that we saw in July of 2021, that kind of lasted for a couple of weeks or a month or so before you saw the confirmation of the up move. And you've got to see that confirmed with an uptick in volume. Volume has been very, very light over the past few months, and that indicates that the selling pressure from November has been pretty persistent. So we're probably about halfway through this sort of, winter in crypto markets. So there's definitely some room to see some further declines from here.
So Damanick, what do you see as support and resistance for Bitcoin?
So that resistance level from 40K or 46K within that range has been pretty strong over the past few weeks. And this is a weekly chart, so it's a fairly longer term look. And the red line just shows a 40-week moving average, and that's been an important gauge of support and resistance over the long term going back to 2020. That support zone from 30K, or you can probably see the little low from there was around 28K or so. That's pretty critical. If we break below that level on a consistent basis, I tend to give it about 2 weeks. There's not a lot of support from there. The upside you can see has been capped since we moved below that 40-week moving average, retested it about a month ago, and then failed to hold it. So that shows that the selling pressure, again, has been pretty persistent, and that's put a cap on any type of rallies that we've been seeing. So right now we're pretty much stuck in a stalemate. And if you see the RSI below, that's just a momentum gauge as well. We're pretty much the most oversold that we've been since that June trough of last year. But within a bear market of sorts, you can remain oversold for quite some time. So there's definitely some risk there. And if you look on the monthly chart, the momentum signals have dipped negative, similar to 2018. So that, to me, says that upside is very much limited from here.
Yep. Geopolitical risk is taking a lot of risk off the table right now. Damanick, thank you very much for the technical analysis. That was our CoinDesk markets reporter, Damanick Dantes. Coming up, the former chief strategy officer of Bitfinex joined us amid the upcoming arraignment of the money laundering couple allegedly behind the big theft in 2016.
From fueling local economies to connecting global markets, the future of money is taking shape now. Crypto State by CoinDesk will bridge communities of crypto investors, thought leaders, and developers to tell the global story of decentralized finance. Join us for our virtual event in Southeast Asia on February 24th to explore the future of crypto as we dive into topics ranging from gaming to the metaverse and more. Register today.
Welcome back. Ilya Lichtenstein and Heather Roselkan Morgan will be formally arraigned in D.C. federal court tomorrow on money laundering charges connected to the 2016 Bitfinex hack of 120,000 Bitcoins. Back then, they were worth about 70 million. These days, worth about $4.5 billion, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. So what was it like to be at the front lines of Bitfinex at the time of the hack? Crypto was a nascent industry, little to no infrastructure, oftentimes using Band-Aid solutions to push forward a novel and incredible potential new technology. All right, joining us now to discuss is Phil Potter, the former Chief Strategy Officer at Bitfinex and co-founder of Tether. Welcome, Phil. Thanks for joining us. So, take us back to the day of the hack. What were some of the emotions running through your mind when you first learned about it?
First, thanks for having me on. I remember that day like it was yesterday, frankly. It was August 2nd, 2016, and I got a phone call frantically asking me to go to my computer and sort of evaluate what was going on. And sure enough, we were looking at our BitGo wallets getting drained. At first we just didn't believe it, right? We were involved with a very long, complicated integration with BitGo, and thought, oh, there must be some kind of display bug. This must be something's going on. But as we dug into it, it became clear that we were the victims of a 120,000 Bitcoin theft, which was shocking,
astonishing. So what was your reaction when this couple, Roselkan and Ilya Lichtenstein, were arrested for money laundering charges linked to this hack?
Well, first off, I was surprised that the FBI even caught anyone affiliated with this event. It's not clear that these two were the actual hackers, although they've only been charged with money laundering at this point. After reviewing Ms. Morgan's Instagram account, I don't know what to say, but in crypto
Which
land,
has since been deleted, but it was a lot of
the truth is stranger than fiction. It's amazing, frankly, and it's a real testament to, I think, to the FBI and the other law enforcement agencies that may have been involved in this process to have been so doggedly pursuing this matter for so many years. So, and I guess go ahead.
Who did you think had done it? I mean, is it plausible that these two were involved? Israeli authorities have arrested two individuals 3 years ago on charges that were that they believed that they were behind the Bitfinex hack.
Right. Well, it was a large sum of money even back. Back then, everything's relative, but certainly as the price of Bitcoin continued to move higher, the value of those Bitcoin, went higher, and yet they didn't move except for a tiny fraction of it. And it made us think eventually that it could have been perhaps a state actor. There's lots of talk about how North Korea has been hacking exchanges and things like that for some time. So in other words, somebody who could afford to be patient, as it were. It could have been, a conspiracy theory would say maybe it was a competitor. Certainly, there are many that accused us of it being some sort of inside job. I certainly hope that that these arrests, put those conspiracy theories to bed. But
Phil, I wonder if you
don't know.
could go
we've been
into
scratching our head over this for a long time.
Yeah, I wonder if you could go into how the initial hack happened. And you mentioned BitGo. What was their role as a custodian for Bitfinex to comply with US KYC, AML, Know Your Customer, anti-money laundering rules?
Well, they were a software vendor that we were working with. They have an off-the-shelf product that they use with most of their customers. We wanted to do a more complex integration with them that was actually really designed toward creating transparency for people's Bitcoin in their wallets. The idea was that whatever the balance on the screen that we tell you have, that you can actually go check the blockchain and see, wow, it's there in a wallet segregated, so that we could do things like proof of reserves or other things. I mean, those are some of the ideas that we were pursuing at the time. But that integration required a very long and custom implementation of their product. So our engineering team and their engineering team worked together very closely for over a year to do this. A vulnerability was introduced, and somebody figured out how to take advantage of undocumented API calls and the like. I mean, it's still quite mysterious to us how it happened. And I'm very much look forward to hearing from these two alleged money launderers on what information they can shed on exactly what went down and how they did it. Given Ms. Morgan's history as being a what do you call it? Expert in social engineering attacks.
Right. Exactly. So I
want to know. I want to know how it happened. Who did they compromise? Somebody on our team, somebody on BitGo's team. I don't know. It could have been me.
Is that possible? Because Heather Morgan, she did give talks on social engineering. She wrote an op-ed on protecting yourself from cybercrime. There's a theory out there that she could have gone to BitGo and said, hey, I'm from Bitfinex and lost my password. Could you help me with X, Y, and Z? Or vice versa. I'm from BitGo, Bitfinex. Can you help me?
I would say that particular scenario that you're suggesting doesn't really quite make sense with the security models that were in place. But yeah, it's I don't know. I really do want to know. I mean, I haven't been with the company in quite some time. I have no financial interest in this recovery, but I have a reputational interest in understanding what happened and how it happened and why on some levels too. So I think there's more to be heard about this story for sure. But I'm thrilled for the people that are going to see a recovery from this, and that is that's a really fantastic epilogue to this very, very strange and amazing story.
Right. So I understand there was a multi-signature security setup. So I assume BitGo and Bitfinex had to sign off on the flow of funds. Is that the case?
That's correct. There was some automation around that.
So there were maybe signatures involved?
It's hard to describe, and I'm not sure I'm at liberty to really get into some of those details per se. However, it was a process that was vetted by our team, vetted by BitGo's team, but there was clearly an edge case that was not anticipated, that the hacker was able to take advantage of. And my personal suspicion is that it's somebody that had access to the system for quite some time, and that they had been sort of laying in wait for the right opportunity to execute this attack. But yes, it was a multi-signature setup. It was something that we there were so many different security layers. It was almost as if there were so many checks and balances that in fact, perhaps, and again, I'm just speaking from my own opinion on this, but that the complexity around all these security mechanisms actually created a vulnerability. Like we were unable to see, the tree from the forest in this case, we thought it was an impregnable system, and it's not just us who thought that. This is something we did, hand in hand with BitGo, and we had a lot of very smart people working on this. But
correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that BitGo was introduced as a custodian again because Bitfinex wanted to comply with US KYC and AML rules. But as part of that process, there was a multi-sig security and automated signatures were involved. And I wonder if part of that, do you think regulations...
That's not accurate. It's not accurate. This has really nothing to do with KYC and AML, nothing. What we were involved in this project with them for quite some time. The idea was transparency to our users who wanted to know that their Bitcoin was there. They not just a balance that is on the screen. We had done a proof of reserves type process in the past with like a Merkle tree, something that Kraken used to do as well. But we were trying to take the next step forward in customer transparency, and it just so happened, at the time we were wrapping up an engagement with the CFTC, and basically, if we were able to, the thinking was that if we were able to actually deliver Bitcoin to customer wallets, that would get, within 28 days of them taking a margin loan, for example, that would skirt an important requirement within the Commodities Exchange Act. And we had tacit acceptance of the solution from the CFTC, and so it seemed to dovetail. It was really a confluence of opportunities in a sense. We were working on this technology over here that, if we implement it in this slightly different way, then maybe we can kill two birds with one stone. So that's what it was. It was that we did not engage in this process with BitGo to solve any regulatory or KYC issue.
What will happen to the Bitcoin seized by the feds in your view? Should everyone, I mean, from what I understand, the folks who had money in Bitfinex, they got a 30% haircut, or so to speak, on their assets from the hack. And how do you think that should they be compensated from the Bitcoin that has been seized by the Fed? I know that they've already been given BFX tokens as sort of shares in Bitfinex. Is that enough?
I mean, in my opinion, and that's all that really matters here. I'm no longer affiliated with the company, but certainly if I still was, I would say, yeah, they've been adequately compensated. I mean, people, we took a haircut from people. We gave them IOUs. They were able to trade out of them if they wanted to, but if they sold them, they gave up their rights in doing so, and that was very clear. And I think that there were people who bought those rights, and that was a speculative effort on their behalf. Ultimately, everyone got paid back dollar for dollar on those tokens, or they converted to equity. Equity in Bitfinex at one point went up to $20 a share on the secondary market, from what I understand. So that was a pretty good trade for those that chose to bet with Bitfinex. So I don't have. I don't think that there's any legal obligation there. I am not a lawyer, but I'm sure it's a large sum of money, and there will be people who come out of the woodwork thinking that they're owed something, and I think that would be up to courts to potentially decide. However, it would be very disheartening if the FBI did not or the DOJ did not swiftly return those funds to Bitfinex. And so that remains to be seen. I mean, I think there's a broad expectation in the marketplace that that's what's going to happen. There is another element to this, too, is that we issued something called a recovery right token, which was a token or a sort of a extra sort of warrant, if you will, that was attached to the BFX tokens if you convert it to equity. So the earlier you convert it to equity, the more of these recovery right tokens you received, which were trading at 4 or 5 cents on the dollar. Now I think they're trading at like 80, 90 cents on the dollar now after this. So the first, whatever it is, 30 million or so dollars goes to them. But also, subsequent to me leaving, they issued their own exchange token, the Leo token, which has done quite well. But one of the things promised in that is that 80% of any potential recovery is from that hack is distributed to those token holders. So, those, as far as I can tell, those are the contractual obligations that are out there that I'm sure will be met.
I just some closing thoughts, perhaps. I mean, it must have been a devastating day during the hack, and as you said, there was suspicion that perhaps it was an inside job. Maybe even Bitfinex did it for some reason. And now that you see that, people have been arrested in connection to the money laundering, allegedly, of the Bitfinex hack. I mean, closing thoughts, lessons learned.
It's very gratifying that somebody was caught for this. I mean, look, I think that the one thing that this industry continues to learn is that we do learn from our mistakes. And that is exchange by exchange, DeFi project by DeFi project. There's been an explosion in wealth creation in the cryptocurrency space, but along with it has come an explosion in crime associated with stealing people's wealth. All I can say is that, these types of events just make the industry ultimately more robust to future attacks. However, it is, again, very interesting that there's a suggestion that this wasn't a technological attack necessarily. It was a social engineering attack. And it is hard to protect against that. Humans are fallible. I'm not sure what comes of that, but I'm very, very curious to find out.
Just one last note on that. I noticed on Twitter there was kind of a bit of a pointing of fingers between BitGo and Bitfinex on responsibility, and if there was any responsibility on BitGo's part. I know you're no longer with Bitfinex, but do you have any insights on that?
I'm going to take the high road on this one and offer no comment. I don't think that either side has enough information to know for sure. I mean, we don't think that we were the ones that were compromised. BitGo doesn't think that they were the ones compromised. The hacker did have information about undocumented API calls that were specifically designed for our integration. Somebody had been in the system rooting around for a while. Where they came from, I do not know. And I'm not here to point fingers, but I am very much looking forward to answers.
Fascinating. Phil, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, it's incredible that the potential hacker or money launderer connected to the Bitfinex hack has been found. And just the other day, we learned that the DAO hacker may potentially have been revealed. So just a note out to criminals.
For quite some time, yeah.
Right. So
yeah,
their information
again,
is
that's
on the
kind of a
blockchain.
different question, right? Is looting a DeFi protocol where code is law, is that a crime? I don't know.
That's a whole other
a lot of
can of worms
discussions.
we're not going to get into on this show, at least. But Phil, thank you so much. That was former Bitfinex Chief Strategy Officer and Tether co-founder, Phil Potter. All right, that's it for All About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Christine Lee. We'll do it all over again tomorrow at 3 o'clock in New York. Also join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in New York for First Mover. You're watching CoinDesk TV.